Friends, now we see Standard 10th Science Unit 15 Nervous System. In this chapter, we see about spinal cord. Spinal cord is a cylindrical structure lying in the neural canal of the vertebral column. It extends from the lower end of medulla oblongata to the first lumbar vertebra. The posterior-most region of the spinal cord tapers into a thin fibrous thread-like structure called filum terminale. Internally, the spinal cord contains a cerebrospinal fluid-filled cavity that is known as central canal. The gray matter of the spinal cord is H-shaped. The upper end of letter H forms posterior horns and the lower end forms anterior horns. A bundle of fiber passes into the posterior horn forming dorsal or afferent root. Fibers pass outward from the anterior horn forming ventral or efferent root. These two roots join to form spinal nerves. The white matter is external and have a bundle of nerve tracts. Spinal cord conducts sensory and motor impulses to and from the brain. It controls reflex actions of the body. Let us know about the cerebrospinal fluid. The brain is suspended in a special fluid environment called cerebrospinal fluid. It is lymph-like, watery fluid that surrounds and protects the brain within the skull. It also fills the central canal of the spinal cord. Now see about the functions of the cerebrospinal fluid. It acts as shock absorbing fluid and protects the brain from damage when it is subjected to a sudden jerk. It supplies nutrients to the brain. It collects and removes waste from the brain. It is also responsible for maintaining a constant pressure inside the cranium. Now we see about the reflex action. A reflex is any response that occurs automatically without consciousness. There are two types of reflex. One is simple or basic reflexes and the other one is acute or conditioned reflexes. Now we see about the simple or basic reflexes. These reflexes are inbuilt and unlearned responses. Many of the actions we perform in our day-to-day life are simple reflexes. For example, winking of eyes when any dust particle enters, sneezing, coughing, yawning. These are the example for these simple reflexes. We perform these actions without thinking. Now we see about the acute or conditional reflexes. These reflexes are the result of practices and learning. Playing harmonium by striking a particular key on seeing a music note is an example for the conditioned reflexes, which require conscious training effort. Most of the reflex actions are monitored and controlled by the spinal cord, hence also known as spinal reflexes. So in the pathway taken by nerve impulse to accomplish reflex action is called reflex arc. Now let us understand how the body executes reflex action when we touch a hot plate. When we touch a very hot pan, the stimulus is the heat, which is sensed by receptor called as heat receptors or thermoreceptors in our hand. This stimulus, that is heat, this in turn triggers an impulse in sensory neuron. The sensory neuron transmits or conveys the messages to the spinal cord. The spinal cord interprets the stimulus and the impulse is passed onto the relay neuron, which in turn transmits it to a motor neuron. Motor neurons carry command from spinal cord to our arm. Muscle in our arm contracts and we withdraw our hand immediately from the palm. This is the example for acquired or conditioned reflexes. Now let us see about the peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system is formed by the nerves arising from the brain and the spinal cord. The nerves arising from the brain is called cranial nerves, and the nerves arising from the spinal cord, that is called as spinal nerves. Now we see about the cranial nerves. In man there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. Some of the cranial nerves are sensory. For example, optic nerve, which innervates the eye. Some are motor nerves, which help in rotation of eyeball. It also innervates the eye muscles, muscles of iris and tear gland. Let us see about the spinal nerves. There are 31 pairs of spinal nerves. Each spinal nerve has a dorsal sensory root and a ventral motor root. The direction of impulses in dorsal spinal root is towards the spinal cord and in ventral spinal root away from the spinal cord. Now we see about the automatic nervous system. Automatic nervous system, ANS, is also called visceral nervous system as it regulates the functions of the internal visceral organs of a body through its two antagonic components, that is sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. This enables the body to perform rapid and specific visceral activities in order to maintain steady state, and it controls the involuntary functions of the visceral organs. Thank you, students.